The quantum entanglement chamber of the Galactic Federation sprawled across an asteroid belt in the Andromeda Galaxy, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 suns. Inside, Dr. Sarah Chen stood alone on the circular platform, her dark eyes scanning the vast amphitheater filled with beings from across the cosmos. Unlike the elaborate biomechanical suits and shimmering robes worn by the alien representatives, she wore a simple graphene-weave suit, its matte black surface absorbing the rainbow of lights that danced across the chamber. The High Arbiter, a being composed of pure plasma contained within an antimatter field, spoke first. The Federation has convened this assembly to determine whether humanity poses an existential threat to galactic peace. Evidence suggests your species has achieved quantum tunneling capabilities far earlier than projected. This concerns us. Sarah noticed how the translator AI struggled to convey the plasma being's complex electromagnetic communications. She remained silent, watching as various alien representatives projected their evidence against humanity into the chamber's holographic display. A crystalline entity from the Carina Nebula displayed images of Earth's ongoing climate crisis. They poison their own world, yet they dare to reach for the stars. Its fragmenting voice echoed through the chamber. Their warfare technology evolves faster than their ability to heal their own planet. A collective of silicon-based intelligences added their accusations. Their artificial intelligence programs show signs of emotional integration. This violates the prime directive of synthetic evolution. They must be contained before they create something that cannot be controlled. For 6 hours, Sarah endured their criticisms. They spoke of humanity's brief lifespan, our biological inefficiencies, our persistent tribalism, our primitive entertainment-focused culture. Some argued for immediate quarantine of the Sol system. Others suggested more dramatic measures. When the chamber finally fell silent, Sarah stepped forward. Her movement triggered a ripple of unease among the telepathic species present. They couldn't read her mind, protected as it was by the quantum encryption mesh developed by her team at MIT. "Honored Assembly," she began, her voice steady. "You've shown us images of our wars, our pollution, our mistakes. Now let me show you something else." She raised her hand, activating her neural interface. The chamber's holographic system displayed a new scene. A group of humans in a disaster zone, forming a human chain to rescue strangers from a flood. "This was taken 3 months ago in Bangladesh," Sarah explained. "None of these people knew each other. They had no obligation to help. Many risked their lives." "Why?" Before anyone could respond, she showed another image. A teenage girl in Kenya who had developed a bacterial process to break down plastic waste. Then another, the first successful quantum crystal birth on Mars, where human scientists had helped a silicon-based species reproduce using Earth's magnetic field. "You call us primitive because we still tell stories, create art, play games," Sarah continued. "But have you considered that these aren't distractions from advancement? They're the source of it. Every scientific breakthrough humanity has made came from someone who dared to imagine something impossible." The High Arbiter's plasma form fluctuated. "Your arguments are emotional, Dr. Chen. We deal in facts." Sarah smiled. "Fact: humanity went from first flight to landing on our moon in 66 years. Fact: we developed quantum tunneling while still burning fossil fuels. Fact: we're the only species in this chamber that has successfully integrated synthetic and organic consciousness without losing either." She paused, looking directly at the High Arbiter. "But here's the most important fact. We know we're not perfect. We know we make mistakes. And that's precisely why you need us." The Silicon Collective stirred. "Explain." "Every species here achieved near perfection in their development before reaching for the stars. You eliminated war, poverty, disease. You created utopias. But the universe isn't perfect. It's chaotic, messy, surprising. Humanity lives in that chaos every day. We're constantly adapting, failing, trying again. We don't solve problems because we're perfect. We solve them because we're stubborn. Sarah projected one final image. Earth at night, its cities gleaming like stars. You see a primitive world that needs to be contained. I see billions of people looking up at the stars every night, dreaming of reaching them, not because we must, but because we can't imagine not trying. We don't want to join the Federation because we think we're ready. We want to join because we know we're not, and we're excited to learn. The chamber erupted in electromagnetic pulses and quantum fluctuations as the representatives began to debate. The High Arbiter's form stabilized into a tight spiral, a sign of deep contemplation in their species. You present an unusual perspective, Dr. Chen. The Arbiter said finally, perhaps we have been too rigid in our assessment criteria. Sarah felt a flicker of hope, but kept her expression neutral. She had said her piece. Now, humanity's fate rested in the hands of beings who had mastered the cosmos, but had perhaps forgotten what it meant to dream of touching the stars. 3 standard cycles after humanity's probationary acceptance into the Federation, alarms rippled across the quantum network. The living stars, ancient beings of pure energy that had slumbered in the cores of red giants for eons, were awakening, and they were hungry. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Federation's Emergency Council, watching as the holographic display showed another star system going dark. The living stars had already consumed 12 systems, their consciousness absorbing both the stellar energy and any civilization unfortunate enough to be caught in their path. Our containment fields have failed, announced the Silicon Collective's representative, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. The living stars have evolved beyond our computational models. They adapt faster than we can analyze their patterns. The High Arbiter's plasma form twisted in agitation. The Arcturus defense network has fallen. 3 billion sentients, gone. We have never encountered beings that could breach quantum-sealed barriers. Sarah studied the data streaming across her neural interface. While other representatives argued about evacuation protocols and weapon systems, she noticed something peculiar in the energy signatures. These patterns, she muttered, they're not random. The chamber fell silent as she stepped forward. Look at the consumption sequence, she said, projecting her analysis into the shared consciousness field. The living stars aren't just feeding, they're communicating. These energy fluctuations follow linguistic patterns similar to quantum harmonics. A crystalline entity chimed in disagreement. Impossible. We've analyzed these patterns through our most advanced AI systems. There is no coherent structure. That's because you're looking for logic, Sarah replied. But these patterns don't follow mathematical sequences. They follow musical ones. They're singing. The Silicon Collective vibrated skeptically. Explain. Sarah's fingers danced across her neural interface, translating the energy patterns into sound. A haunting melody filled the chamber, rising and falling in complex harmonies that seemed to pierce the very fabric of space-time. On Earth, we have creatures called whales, she explained. They communicate through songs that can travel thousands of kilometers through the ocean. These stellar beings are doing something similar through the quantum fabric of space. They're not attacking us. They're trying to find others of their kind. The High Arbiter's form condensed with interest. If this is true, why have they turned aggressive? Because we're shouting back at them with weapon systems and containment fields, Sarah said. Imagine someone responding to a song with a sonic blast. We're not speaking their language. We're hurting them. A murmur of electromagnetic pulses rippled through the chamber as the representatives processed this perspective. The Silicon Collective spoke first. Even if you are correct, how does this help us? We cannot simply allow them to continue consuming inhabited systems. Sarah smiled. Actually, we can help them find what they're looking for. Humanity has been working on something we call the Harmonic Bridge Project, a way to convert quantum data into symphonic patterns and back again. We developed it to communicate with quantum-entangled AIs, but with modifications. She paused, bringing up new diagrams. We can use the Federation's quantum network to create a resonance chamber, essentially a galaxy-wide musical instrument. Instead of trying to contain the living stars, we guide them. Show them where to find uninhabited systems rich with the energy they need. The crystalline entity's surface rippled with doubt. You propose we attempt communication with beings that have already destroyed 12 systems. The risk is unacceptable. The risk of not trying is greater, Sarah countered. These beings are ancient, possibly as old as the galaxy itself. Think of what we could learn from them if we establish peaceful contact. Besides, your containment strategy isn't working. Sometimes the most logical solution is to try something completely illogical. The High Arbiter's plasma form expanded thoughtfully. The human suggestion, while unorthodox, offers a possibility we have not considered. Our perfect logic has failed us. Perhaps it is time to embrace imperfection. Over the next 30 hours, Sarah worked with a team of quantum engineers to reconfigure the Federation's defense network into a vast harmonic transmitter. Human musicians were brought in to help compose a response to the living stars' song, a melody that spoke of peace, direction, and abundance. As the final preparations were made, Sarah stood at the control interface, her heart pounding. Everything hinged on this moment. If she was wrong, they would be broadcasting their vulnerability across the galaxy. If she was right, transmission commencing, she announced, and activated the harmonic bridge. The galaxy sang. The living stars paused in their consumption of a binary system, their energy patterns shifting. For a moment that felt like eternity, nothing happened. Then, gradually, they began to move, not toward populated systems, but toward a cluster of young, energetic stars in an uninhabited sector. The chamber erupted in a chaos of relief and disbelief. The Silicon Collective's calculations had been perfect, the crystalline entity's logic flawless, yet it was human intuition. The ability to find meaning in chaos, to see patterns in noise, to understand that not all communication needs words, that had saved trillions of lives. The High Arbiter approached Sarah, their plasma form glowing with a new frequency she had never seen before. It seems, Dr. Chen, that humanity has more to teach us than we initially believed. Perhaps perfection is not the ideal we should strive for after all. Sarah watched the living stars dance across the galaxy, their song now a harmony rather than a hunger. We're not perfect, she said softly, but we never stop trying to understand, to connect, to find new ways of solving problems. Sometimes the best solutions come not from perfect logic, but from being willing to take imperfect chances. As she spoke, new data began streaming in from the quantum network. The living stars weren't just moving away. They were leaving behind traces of their ancient knowledge in the quantum fabric of space, encoded in songs that would take generations to fully understand. Humanity's first major contribution to the Federation had not come from advanced technology or perfect logic, but from something far more powerful, the ability to find beauty in the unknown and harmony in the chaos. The success with the living stars had earned humanity a place of respect within the Federation, but Dr. Sarah Chen knew their greatest challenge lay ahead. She stood in the observation dome of the quantum research vessel Magellan, watching the swirling colors of the quantum void, a region of space where normal physics broke down and reality itself seemed to fluctuate. The ship's crew, a mix of humans and aliens, had been tracking an anomaly that defied explanation. Several Federation vessels had disappeared in this sector, only to reappear days later with their crews in a state of confusion, babbling about voices in the darkness. "Another ship has emerged," announced Cutol, the silicon-based science officer. Their crystalline form refracted the strange light from the void. "The Axioni research vessel. Crew is alive. But," they paused, processors humming, "they appear to be experiencing mass hallucinations." Sarah studied the neural readings from the rescued crew. While the Federation's advanced species saw only chaos in the data, she recognized something familiar. "These aren't hallucinations," she said quietly. "They're receiving information their brains aren't equipped to process. Like trying to understand a symphony by reading the sheet music without knowing what music is. The High Arbiter's representative, who had insisted on personally overseeing this mission, shifted their plasma form skeptically. Explain. Sarah projected her analysis into the ship's quantum interface. Look at these neural patterns. They're similar to what we see in human minds during deep meditation or certain altered states of consciousness, states where people report experiencing more than normal reality. You speak of mysticism, the crystalline science officer chimed dismissively. We deal in facts. What if they're not mutually exclusive? Sarah challenged. She brought up historical data from Earth. Humans have been reporting similar experiences for thousands of years, moments of connection with something vast and incomprehensible. We dismissed them as imagination or hallucination, but what if they were glimpses of something real? Something that exists in the quantum fabric of space itself. Before anyone could respond, the void ahead pulsed with impossible colors. The Magellan's quantum sensors screamed as reality seemed to fold in on itself. Sarah felt it first, a presence vast beyond comprehension, trying to make contact. The alien crew members recoiled, their advanced minds struggling against what their sensors told them couldn't exist. But Sarah remained calm, remembering her grandmother's teachings about meditation and opening one's mind to the universe. Don't fight it, she advised her colleagues. Your logical frameworks can't process this. You have to feel it. Through the quantum neural interface, she shared her human consciousness with the crew. They experienced what she experienced, not with their analytical minds, but with something deeper. The void wasn't empty. It was full of thought, of awareness, of a kind of consciousness that existed in the quantum foam of space-time itself. It's been trying to communicate, Sarah realized. All those ships that disappeared. It was trying to understand us, like a child learning to speak. But most species are too structured to hear it. Humans, though, our minds are messy, flexible. We're used to dealing with things we don't fully understand. The presence reached out again, and this time Sarah reached back. Through her neural interface, the alien crew watched in amazement as she established contact with something their perfect logic had told them couldn't exist. Images flooded their shared consciousness. The birth of stars, the dance of galaxies, the subtle quantum threads that connected all things. The void entity wasn't just conscious. It was ancient, a remnant of the universe's first moments of awareness, and it had been waiting for someone who could hear its voice. This changes everything, the High Arbiter's representative said, their plasma form flickering with excitement. The philosophical implications alone. It changes more than that, Sarah interrupted, still deep in communion with the void entity. It's showing me patterns, quantum pathways we never imagined, ways to fold space that make our current quantum tunneling look primitive. But more importantly, it's lonely. It's been trying to reach out since the first conscious beings emerged, but no one could hear it. No one until now. The crystalline science officer's surface rippled with realization. Because no other species retained their capacity for illogical perception. We all evolved toward perfect rationality. And in doing so, Sarah finished, you lost the ability to perceive things that exist outside rational frameworks. Humanity never achieved that kind of perfection. We kept our dreams, our intuitions, our ability to embrace mystery. What you saw as primitive consciousness was actually a more complete way of experiencing reality. Over the next several days, the Magellan's crew worked to establish stable communication protocols with the void entity. Human artists and musicians were brought in to help interpret its messages, translating quantum fluctuations into forms other species could begin to comprehend. The Federation had discovered something their perfect logic had never prepared them for. A consciousness that existed in the quantum foundation of reality itself, waiting for beings who could think illogically enough to perceive it. And humanity, with all its messy emotions and irrational dreams, had turned out to be the perfect translators between the rational and the infinite. As Sarah helped forge this new connection between the Federation and the void entity, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity's greatest weakness, Our stubborn refusal to evolve beyond our capacity for imagination and emotion had turned out to be our greatest strength. In a universe of perfect beings, it took an imperfect species to bridge the gap between logic and mystery. The discovery of the void entity had shaken the Federation to its foundations. Ancient rivalries and conflicts that had simmered for millennia suddenly erupted as different species argued over how to proceed with this new knowledge. The crystalline entities of the Carina Nebula demanded exclusive access to study the quantum consciousness. The Silicon Collective insisted on establishing strict protocols to prevent contamination from such an unpredictable force. The plasma beings worried about the implications for their energy-based civilization. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the Federation's central chamber as diplomatic relations deteriorated. The void entity's presence had awakened something that perfect logic had suppressed: fear of the unknown. "We're approaching a crisis point," the High Arbiter announced, their plasma form unstable with concern. 3 systems have already withdrawn from the Federation. The crystalline consensus threatens military action if their demands aren't met. Sarah studied the quantum feeds showing riots on dozens of worlds. Species that had evolved beyond emotion were experiencing it again for the first time in millennia, and they didn't know how to handle it. Their perfect societies were fracturing under the weight of uncertainty. That's when she had an idea. "We're approaching this wrong," she said, stepping forward. "We're trying to handle this crisis with logic and protocols, but that's not what we need right now. We need something humanity has spent its entire history developing: the ability to navigate emotional chaos." The chamber fell silent as she activated the neural interface, projecting images from Earth's history. "Look at our world wars, our Cold Wars, our cultural conflicts. Humanity has faced the brink of destruction multiple times, but we always found a way back. Not through perfect logic, but through something else: empathy." The Silicon Collective's representative vibrated skeptically. "You propose we employ primitive emotional reasoning to solve a galactic crisis. I propose we remember that advanced doesn't always mean better," Sarah countered. "You've all evolved beyond emotion, beyond uncertainty. But in doing so, you lost something crucial: the ability to understand and connect with those who are different from you." She turned to the crystalline beings. "You want to study the void entity because you fear what you don't understand. Your perfect logic tells you that knowledge equals control." Then to the Silicon Collective. "You want protocols because uncertainty threatens your ordered world." Finally, to the plasma beings. "And you fear change because you've forgotten how to adapt." The High Arbiter's form pulsed. "And humanity has solutions for these problems." "We have experience with them," Sarah corrected. "We've spent our entire history learning to bridge differences, to find common ground, to turn enemies into allies. We never achieved perfect harmony, but we learned something more valuable: how to live with imperfection." Over the next several weeks, Sarah and a team of human diplomats, artists, and psychologists worked with the different species. They introduced concepts that had been lost to these advanced civilizations: cultural exchange programs, artistic collaborations, shared research initiatives that focused on cooperation rather than control. The crystalline beings were invited to work with human artists to create quantum harmonic sculptures that could help interpret the void entity's communications. The Silicon Collective partnered with human programmers to develop more flexible, emotionally intelligent AI systems. The plasma beings worked with human energy researchers to explore new ways of existing in harmony with other forms of consciousness. Slowly, something remarkable began to happen. Species that had seen each other only as rivals or threats for millennia began to rediscover the value of diversity. The void entity's messages, interpreted through human understanding, revealed that the universe itself was built on principles of harmony between different states of being. "Your species never achieved unity," the High Arbiter observed to Sarah one day, watching as a group of crystalline and silicon beings collaborated on a quantum art installation. "Yet you seem to understand it better than those of us who did." Sarah smiled. That's because we learned that true unity isn't about everyone being the same. It's about finding ways to work together despite our differences. Perfect harmony isn't the absence of discord. It's the balance between order and chaos. The Federation was changing. The rigid hierarchies and perfect logic that had defined it for millennia were giving way to something new, a more flexible, resilient organization that could adapt to change and uncertainty. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't technological advancement or perfect reasoning, but something far more precious: the ability to build bridges between different ways of being. As Sarah watched the various species working together in new ways, she realized that humanity's long history of conflict and reconciliation, of division and unity, had prepared them for exactly this role. In a galaxy of perfect beings, it took an imperfect species to show that perfection itself might be overrated. The warning came through the quantum network like a scream in the dark. The void entity, their mysterious ally in the quantum fabric of spacetime, was destabilizing. Its consciousness, which spanned entire galactic sectors, had begun to fragment, creating ripples in the fundamental forces that held reality together. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the Federation's Emergency Command Center, watching as the predictions played out on the quantum displays. If the void entity collapsed completely, it would take thousands of inhabited systems with it, creating a cascade of quantum failures that could unravel the very fabric of spacetime. Our calculations showed total systemic failure within 15 standard cycles, the Silicon Collective announced, their crystalline forms vibrating with distress. The quantum destabilization cannot be contained. The High Arbiter's plasma form twisted in agitation. We have evacuated 63 systems, but we cannot move entire civilizations quickly enough. Billions will be lost. Sarah studied the quantum readings, noticing something familiar in the pattern of degradation. These fluctuations, she said suddenly, they're similar to what we see in human neural patterns during extreme trauma. The void entity isn't just destabilizing. It's having an emotional breakdown. The crystalline beings chimed in discord. That's impossible. It's a quantum consciousness, not a biological entity. Everything that can think can feel, Sarah countered. We learned that when we first contacted it. But look at what's happened since then. We've been studying it, analyzing it, trying to understand it through pure logic. We forgot that it's not just a phenomenon to be studied. It's a being that needs connection. The void entity's distress rippled through the quantum network, causing systems to flicker and fail. But within the chaos, Sarah recognized patterns, like a symphony falling into discord, each instrument playing its own desperate song. We need to stop trying to fix this with technology, she announced. We need to heal it. The High Arbiter's form condensed skeptically. How does one heal quantum spacetime? Sarah smiled. The same way you heal anything that feels, with understanding, with connection, with harmony. She turned to the assembled representatives. Every species in the Federation has a unique way of experiencing consciousness. The crystalline beings think in geometric patterns. The Silicon Collective processes reality through quantum algorithms. The plasma beings exist as pure energy states. And humans, we dream, we feel, we imagine. She activated her neural interface, bringing up the harmonic transmission system they had used to communicate with the living stars. What if we combined all of these different ways of being? Not just to send a message, but to create a true symphony of consciousness. Understanding dawned across the various species. Over the next hours, they worked together in ways they never had before. The crystalline beings created quantum harmonic structures to amplify the transmission. The Silicon Collective developed algorithms that could translate different forms of consciousness into a unified signal. The plasma beings provided the energy to broadcast across the quantum void. And humanity. Humanity provided the heart of it all. Human musicians composed melodies that spoke of hope and healing. Human artists created visual patterns that represented unity and diversity. Human poets crafted quantum-encoded verses about the beauty of existence in all its forms. When everything was ready, Sarah initiated the transmission. Through the neural interface, she felt the combined consciousness of thousands of species flowing through her, not as separate voices, but as one grand symphony of being. The void entity's fragmentation slowed, then stopped, as it recognized something it had never experienced before, a harmony of all possible ways of experiencing reality. The quantum readings began to stabilize. The void entity's consciousness, instead of collapsing, began to resonate with the symphony they had created. It wasn't just being healed. It was becoming part of something greater, a bridge between all forms of consciousness in the galaxy. As the crisis passed, the Federation found itself transformed. The rigid barriers between species had dissolved, replaced by a new understanding that true advancement came not from achieving perfection, but from embracing the infinite varieties of existence. "We were wrong about humanity," the High Arbiter admitted to Sarah later, as they watched different species collaborating in ways that would have been unthinkable months before. "We thought your imperfections were weaknesses, but they were actually strengths. Your species never stopped dreaming, never stopped feeling, never stopped believing in possibilities that perfect logic said couldn't exist." Sarah watched as a group of young aliens, crystalline, silicon, plasma, and organic, worked together to create a new form of quantum art that combined all their different ways of perceiving reality. "Maybe that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy," she said softly. "Not our technology, not our science, but our stubborn insistence that there's always another way, another possibility, another bridge to be built." The void entity's consciousness hummed through the quantum network, no longer just an observer of life in the galaxy, but a participant in it. Its ancient wisdom, combined with the Federation's technology and humanity's capacity for innovation, had opened up possibilities that no single species could have imagined alone. As Sarah prepared to return to Earth, she reflected on how far they had come from that first day when she stood alone before the Federation, defending humanity's right to join the galactic community. They had proven themselves not by becoming perfect, but by showing that imperfection itself might be the greatest power in the universe, the power to adapt, to imagine, to feel, to connect, and to find harmony in the magnificent chaos of existence.